Hey guys, today I'm going to be doing a book review on Dorothy Must Die by Danielle Paige. Amy Gum lives a boring life in Kansas, where she lives with her drunken mother and is constantly bullied at school. One day, a tornado magically takes Amy to Oz, a place she thought only existed in the books and movies. But Oz isn't the Oz she remembers. Driven by ambition, Dorothy has placed Oz into total ruin. It's Amy's mission to restore Oz to its former glory, and in order to do that, Dorothy must die. Some of my most favorite books have to do with imaginative retellings. And I guess more specifically, I really adore retellings that deal with fairy tales or just anything that's iconic, for instance, The Wizard of Oz. So obviously, I was pretty excited to get my hands on this book, which is a retelling of L. Frank Baum's The Wizard of Oz. Well, unfortunately, I do have some mixed feelings about this book. For the most part, my feelings are positive, but I do have quite a few negatives. One of my favorite Oz retellings is Gregory Maguire's Wicked series, and I don't know, maybe I'm just spoiled with that series, because in Maguire's Wicked series, the world building is so fantastic and beautiful, and there's something otherworldly about it. The Oz in that series is rich and beautiful, but it's also ugly and horrifying at the same time. And you get a really great sense of being inside Oz and experiencing the world of Oz and being with those characters. So, going into Dorothy Must Die, I was automatically making comparisons to Gregory Maguire's Wicked series, and I don't know if that was a good thing or not. With Dorothy Must Die, I just didn't feel like Danielle Paige's world building was anywhere near as fantastic as Maguire's series. I just didn't get that rich depth and beauty and ugliness to this version of Oz. This book is part of a series. I'm not sure if it's a trilogy or maybe it's 4 or 5 books, I don't know, but I gotta keep in mind that this is only the first book in the series. Who knows, in books 2 and 3, maybe the world building expands, I don't know. But right now, book 1 didn't do that. But once again, going back to the Wicked series, Gregory Maguire was able to put so much depth and history into Oz in just one book. And with Dorothy Must Die, it should have done the same thing. And I'm not quite sure what it is that's lacking or missing in Danielle Paige's version of Oz. I just don't know, there's just something not right, and I feel like I'm only seeing Oz on the surface level. And sorry once again for all these comparisons, but I can't help it. With Maguire's Oz, Oz is gritty and neglected and desperate. But then with Paige's version, you get an Oz that is really glitzy and gaudy and flashy, and I didn't really like that. When Amy arrives in Oz, she immediately learns that this is not the Oz that she has seen in movies or books. This is an Oz that has been plunged into ruin because Dorothy got driven by ambition, and she's trying to collect all this magic for whatever reason, and she's enslaved the monkeys. And so all of the inhabitants of Oz are very wary of Dorothy, and they just bow to her wishes and do whatever she wants. And so you have this really desolate look at Oz, but I don't feel like that mood or tone came through in the writing. And then you'll kind of move on to some other scenes, and you'll kind of witness this blinged out version of Oz, and it just didn't seem to be, you know, contrasting with what Danielle Paige is telling us about Oz to begin with. In general, I had a very hard time kind of getting into the swing of this novel, and I really didn't like the first half of this novel. I think what I was especially having trouble with was Amy's voice. There was just something about Amy's voice in the first half of the book that just wasn't doing it for me. I didn't really like how she spoke, I didn't like how she would think. Amy was just full of self-pity half the time. And Amy was also a very humorous character in the first half of the book, which kind of wasn't really working for me either. Her overall voice just kind of felt hectic and chaotic and all over the place. Like, Danielle Paige was still trying to kind of get into the swing of what Amy's voice would turn out to be by the end of the book. This book is also incredibly slow at the start, and not much really even happens. There's a lot of time spent on Amy getting orientated with Oz and learning to fight and use magic and kind of meeting other characters in this universe. But ultimately, I felt like some of that kind of didn't really go anywhere, and some of it felt unneeded. The parts with Amy learning to fight and use magic should have been some of the most interesting parts of this book, but it was all kind of honestly boring to me. And you kind of just meet all of these characters all at once, and I didn't particularly like any of them, and I had no real connection with them. And you guys, this book is called Dorothy Must Die. Don't get me started about the introduction of Dorothy. Oh my god. To put it quite bluntly, I did not believe Dorothy as a villain. Let me just quote to you this particular paragraph when Dorothy is introduced. And there are no spoilers, don't worry. This is when Amy first, she comes across Dorothy. This was not the same girl I'd read about. She was wearing the dress, but it wasn't the dress exactly. It was as if someone had cut her familiar blue checkered jumper into a million little pieces, and then put it back together again, only better. Better and, okay, a little bit more revealing. Actually, more than a little bit. Not that I was judging. Instead of farm girl cotton, it was silk and chiffon. The cut was somewhere between haute couture and French hooker. The bodice nipped, tucked, and lifted. There was cleavage. Lots of cleavage. And then the descriptions about Dorothy continue from there, just describing how flashy and phony and fake she looks. Yeah, I did not like that at all. Not one bit. This is the Dorothy that I'm supposed to be terrified of. This is the villain of the novel. Sorry, but I did not buy it. And why does Dorothy have to be described as a French hooker? I also didn't like how Dorothy spoke overall. She often just felt really childish and whiny, and her character just seemed very exaggerated, almost kind of like a cliche comedy movie villain. And like I said earlier, Dorothy has been driven into this crazy madness because she got ambitious and she's been collecting all this magic. Thing is, I still don't quite understand why Dorothy is the way she is. Once again, this is book one. Maybe this will all be fleshed out, hopefully in the next books. Without spoiling anything, what I did enjoy and like about this novel was the second half. It was the second half of the novel where I felt like Danielle Paige's writing improved, and I really felt like Paige had a great handle on Amy's voice and the direction that Amy was going in. And most importantly, it was the second half of the novel where Amy's story kind of took a little bit of a different direction. Once again, I'm not going to spoil anything, and she got away from those initial characters that she met at the beginning. The story picked up immensely, and I just found myself really enjoying it and flipping the pages and wanting to get to the next chapter and see where things were going. And I also felt like Oz finally came to life. I was able to kind of see more of why people were so terrified of Dorothy, and there was also a lot of mystery elements that were introduced into the story that I'm guessing will be kind of carried through into books 2 and 3, so I'm very curious where these mysteries are going to go. It's also the second half of the novel where you get some classic characters like the Wizard, the Lion, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man. I still can't say that Dorothy's character impressed me any more than it did initially, but I do feel like Dorothy's story was starting to go somewhere interesting and very deep. So yeah, it was basically the second half of this novel that saved the whole damn book. And I don't know if that's a good thing. I was beginning to lose hope about this series. I was so excited to start it, but thank God for the second half. I'm still very much interested in continuing the series just because of the second half alone. And I'm excited to see where the plot and the characters are going. If you are a fan of Gregory Maguire's Wicked series and you don't tend to read a lot of young adult, I suggest you don't pick this up because you probably will only read a few chapters and put it down. But if you do enjoy Maguire's series but you also read quite a bit of YA, then I think you'll highly enjoy this. So yeah, that's it for my review of Dorothy Must Die. Have you guys read this book? I'd really like to know your opinions. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and if you liked this book review, you may like these. Bye guys.